Amanda Razani with Digital CxO, and I'm excited to be here again speaking with Ken Babcock, the co-founder and CEO of Tango. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back on the show. So, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background, and then a little bit about Tango and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, let's see. Born and raised in upstate New York. Went to Cornell for undergrad. Spent a year in consulting, and then most of my career actually at Uber in the Bay Area during periods of crazy growth and turmoil and lots of interesting eras, let's call it. But that's really where the entrepreneurial bug bit me. And so, ever since that, I've been working on trying to build the skill set to start a company, and then eventually did with Tango. I met my co-founders, Brian and Dan, while we were all at Harvard Business School during the fall of 2019. And that's really where we got the idea for Tango, and thinking about how can we accelerate knowledge transfer within organizations? And the way most companies do that is through documentation. But documentation, we feel, in the modern organization is pretty broken. It takes too long to create documentation. It gets stale really quickly. And the end result is that, of all of a company's processes, probably less than half are actually documented. And so with Tango, we've focused on how do we lower the barrier to creating documentation, acknowledging that, the best companies, the ones that achieve this operational excellence, rely on process documentation, rely on cross-skilling, upskilling. And so, that's what we've been working towards for 3 years now. And, we're lucky to have over 300,000 users of the Tango product. It's very easy to get started for free. And we're continuing to provide new features and new value to those end users.
Speaking of that, I know you recently rolled out a new feature. Can you share a bit more about this new feature?
Yeah, it's a feature called Batch Blur. So the output of a Tango is a step-by-step how-to guide complete with screenshots, descriptions, URLs. The screenshots are probably the most prominent part of any how-to guide. And whenever you're taking screenshots, anyone who's done it, who's listening, knows that, sometimes you can capture some things that maybe you don't want in the screenshot. Those can be things as, like, oh, I'm checking my ESPN scores on the side, or it can be something that most organizations care a lot about, which is PII, information about your customers that identifies them or exposes their identity as you're going through a workflow. And a lot of organizations have controls around PII. And so we've learned that, screenshots are definitely an area where, users of our product and buyers, they always ask about, okay, well, how do you control for PII? So Batch Blur is a huge step in that direction, because it's allowing us to scan across all the screenshots that are taken in a workflow. And, when a user says, hey, I'd actually like to blur this, we search all the rest of the screenshots to automatically identify that. So today, a user has to go step by step through each of those screenshots and find that element of PII. When this is released, they won't have to do that anymore. So it saves them a lot of time creating documentation, which, if we go back to the origin story, what we set out to do in the beginning, save people time, lower that barrier, do more of the work for them. So Batch Blur is a step in that direction.
So much more efficient, and it's going to be really great in this age of remote and hybrid work that we find ourselves into, I imagine, because there is so much more content being sent across the web. And I know this is going to just make it easier with, like you said, all those little things that you just don't want, data and important information, personal information getting out there that can just be easily blurred.
Yeah. So, I think the thing that we kind of read, which, I don't know if everyone knows this stat, but, PII or your privacy information, things that you hold near and dear, your passwords, your address, your credit card info, there were more breaches in 2022 than ever before. And that's, in in a time where, we have more tools to control for that. We have password managers. We have, secure ways of encrypting websites. But the breaches are still happening. And so that's something that we've always been mindful of too, is how do we make sure that, we're not exposing this almost like IP within companies, and how do we make sure that we're protecting organizations and that they know that they can trust Tango to take care of the PII that runs and operates their businesses. And just like you said, there's more tools than ever, there's more content than ever. And that means there's just more touch points where things can go awry, and personally identified information can be exposed.
Absolutely. And I know security is always a concern. And I know a lot of businesses are in digital transformation initiatives. Where do you see Tango fitting into their digital transformation initiatives?
Yeah, whenever you think about digital transformation or change management, it's upgrading a suite of tools, or upgrading, your organization's efficiency through the use of tools. We always talk about the people, process, and technology framework of any organization. Digital transformation is one that touches all three of those components, probably most acutely technology, because you're adopting new software, you're helping people figure out, how do they use that? What are the processes in which they'll use that for? And so, we fit really nicely in there, because a lot of what our organizations use Tango for is that change management. Hey, we used to do something this way. Here's the step-by-step. Now with this new tool, we have to do something that way. And, given the investment that organizations are putting into tooling, and the amount of applications that they use, it's critical that they get the most out of those. And that means making sure that people are educated and aware of all the features and functionality that are going to allow them to be more efficient. And a lot of organizations skip that step. So if you feel like your organization is skipping that step, I highly encourage you to download Tango today.
Wonderful. So 5 years from now, where do you see Tango? Do you have any goals now that you've rolled out this feature? What's next?
So we've always focused on the creator of documentation. How do we save them time? Now, documentation, it doesn't necessarily exist if there's not a viewer, right? It doesn't matter if you create something that no one looks at. So for us, the next couple of years are going to be, how do we build a robust viewership experience, one that not only allows people to view things that are, visually pleasing, but actually it helps them execute the workflow. And so we're starting to work on some of that stuff today, where, if I'm a creator and I share something with you, Amanda, that Tango workflow will actually walk you through the steps and help you execute against it. Longer term, that also provides an opportunity for you to give feedback. We know how documentation gets stale. And so as the viewer, you might actually find a better workaround for that process, or a more efficient way to do something. So as you're being guided through it, maybe you're actually giving feedback. Hey, you know what? I have a better way. And that just helps the whole organization continue to find efficiency. And then the very, very long term for us is, how do we, acknowledge that understanding of an organization's best practices, such that we can intervene in real time and help people get unstuck. So, that's a time period where you might not even need to have a Tango workflow open. We actually meet you where you are, where you're stuck, and help you execute. So that's the long term for us.
That'd be really convenient. Sounds like a great plan. Well, do you have anything else you would like to share with us today?
I mean, I think we covered a lot of it. I think also I would just want to acknowledge the customers that helped us define Batch Blur. These are organizations in healthcare, finance, data, people that are interacting with PII all the time. And without them, I don't think we could have built the product in the way that we have. So I'm really excited to release Batch Blur. It's always gratifying to deliver something that your users have explicitly asked for. So, thank you to them. I guess that'll be my parting words.
Absolutely. It sounds like a far-reaching feature that can really cross many industries.
Yeah, totally. And PII is something we probably all interact with even without knowing it. Those are just the industries that feel it quite a bit when you're talking about complying with different requirements and regulations.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your insights with us. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon down the road.
Thanks, Amanda. Always a pleasure.